Hey everyone, and welcome to Prune Belly Insiders. I'm your host, Michael Adams. Everybody, please welcome Dan Mason.
Hi.
Hey, how are you today, Dan?
Oh, I'm doing good.
That's good. Why don't you tell us your story?
Okay, I am 31 years old. I live in Northern Illinois. I was born with prune belly in '93, and I was born with I came out and they had no idea that I would even have prune belly. They had no recollection of it. They did, however, once I was born, they did have a meeting with my mother and found out that there was actually a family member of hers earlier on that had a couple kids that uh, were born and passed away very quickly that they figured out actually had prune belly later on because they didn't know there was a diagnosis of what it was.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So I was born with no stomach muscles, one kidney, two ureters, and a bladder that was very messed up. So they went in to fix, oh, and the 1 year to from the kidney to the bladder on the good kidney side that I was actually born with was missing the ureter was kind of mangled. So they went in and did the my right ureter feeds my left kidney, and then they took the left ureter and stitched it into the bladder. So the bladder is about 3 times the size of a normal bladder.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've there's been studies that like a normal person like at 500 cc's of liquid needs to pee, like they feel it have to go. I've held up to 2,500 and not even felt the need to pee or go or anything. So there's been big stories about that in my life of being out with people and they're like, "Wow, you just don't have to pee." I'm like, "No, I'm good. Let's keep going." So
Yeah, I don't know how much it would be in cc's, but I remember they did a test on me with that too, because I have a pretty bad bladder, and I think they said I can hold up to like a gallon of milk
yeah,
without
right.
without feeling it.
Yeah,
So, do you catheterize yourself at all?
I do, or I did earlier on in life, and now I drink so much water and everything throughout the day that I pee so many times that I've even talked to doctors, but like I pee more than probably a normal human does, and they're like, "Yeah, you're probably pretty good at how much you drink and everything. You're probably pretty okay to be without it." And I told them I was like, when I pee, kind of I know I pee out quite a bit every time, and it stays, it's clear and doesn't, I don't have a UTI as much as I used to. So.
Right.
Um, Yeah, and then at 13 years old, I was told that earlier on in life I would probably need a kidney transplant around 13 or 14 years old. And at 13, I had my first kidney transplant from my dad, and that lasted till, or that was in '07, and that lasted till 2017. And I had another one from my sister, and now we're 7 years into it. And I just got some news in the last couple months that it's okay, but I got some rejection in it that we're dealing with. Probably later on down the road, I probably will need a third one, but that's later on, hopefully later in the future.
Right, right. So, how many surgeries have you been through?
I believe the total count is about 12 or 13, maybe a few more, just because there was, uh, augmentations for stomach augmentations and stuff like that. So it would be one little surgery and one little surgery, one little surgery.
Right.
I think in the first 14 months I had 11 surgeries or something like that. It was real close to number. It was like almost like one surgery a month.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems to be how doctors are with prune bellies.
Yeah.
Either a prune belly needs it, or, in my personal opinion, in my case, there's doctors who just want to cut due to the fact you are a prune belly.
Yeah. Well, I've had some that are very interested just to be like, wow, I have a prime belly patient.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's even when we go into a doctor with my stepson or my wife or whatever, and talking about doctor, and they're like, "Well, what do you and something will get on the conversation. They'll be like, well, what do you have?" And I'll be like, "Oh, you've never even heard of it, don't." And they'll be like, "Well, no, what
Right.
is it?" I'll tell them. They'll be like, "Yeah, no, I've never heard of that."
So going back to stomach augmentations, for people who don't know what that is, can you please explain what a stomach augmentation is?
So I, I honestly don't completely know, but is what I know is the stomach was shaped like a prune when I came out, and they literally reshaped it and restitched it all to pretty much make your stomach look normal.
Right. Yeah, I've actually had four of those surgeries, I believe, where they tried using my back muscles and
Okay.
tried pulling it to give me stomach muscles, and unfortunately, I think it failed every time.
Fine.
It's weakened my back so much.
Much. Yeah. And that's my problem is I have such a weak back now too that I'm 30 years old and walk around like I'm 60.
Okay. So, what were some of your emotions growing up with this?
I mean, I was always told I'd handle it pretty well. I was always a positive kid, and you really wouldn't know I was sick until I was sick. I always ran around like a happy-go-lucky kid and just didn't let it bother me. You know, so even joking now, I talked later on with people in life that are like, "Oh, I have depression issues and stuff," and it's like I've walked around with this my whole life, and I wake up every morning. It's like, well, I'm up. I get another day.
Right,
So every day every day I'm up and upright. It's another day that I'm beating the odds.
right. So, hmm, is, what more can you tell us about your story?
Um, More of my story. I mean, it's all about questions, whatever you really want to know.
Like, like that's what I'm trying to do because I normally bring people on here, they tell their entire story, and then as I get questions is when I start asking.
Well, I mean, my entire story. It's just, I grew up on a farm. I loved
How's
working on
that? How's
cars.
growing up on a farm?
Actually, that kind of helped me out in life because they said when I had my kidney transplant that growing up on a farm helps you because your immune system was actually better off than if you grew up in a city because you weren't around all this exposure to toxins and stuff. So growing up like that and then being a mechanic my whole life and being in the trades has really helped too because people have been like I only get sick about 2 3 times a year. And I was like, well, yeah, because I'm always around dirt and I never I always liked
Right.
it. So it was you just kind of grew up in it and around it, and it made you a healthier person because you had it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that gave you a higher immune system.
Yeah.
So, in terms of prune belly, though, with not having stomach muscles, did that make some of the work on the farm harder for you to do?
Yeah, and I still struggle with today there's things that I tell people I'm not going to be able to do that or I'm going to need help lifting this or doing that because I'm not capable of doing that. Um, but it was you just found your way to work around it or work with someone to figure it out. And then, taking it on through life further of, running a business when you get sick, you have to figure out, do you have to have other people help you or I've had
Right.
to close up my business once before because I got sick with my last kidney transplant and literally had to close up my business because I couldn't run it anymore and
And and
had
what
to
type of
start over.
business was that?
I run a small engine repair business, so I work on
Oh,
lawnmowers and yeah, it's a fun little hobby. If the hobby turned into a job that I actually kind of like.
that's good. Not many
Yeah,
people can say they like their jobs.
right. Yeah, and then I work for a landscaping company down the street from my house part time too, doing spraying applications and lawn care services.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I try to keep myself busy, but
Yeah,
yeah. Other than that, my story has been pretty. I feel like it's been a pretty simple, normal life because I try to make myself feel
yeah.
that way.
Ha-
Then you talk to
Have you
people, they're
dealt
like, "Oh my
with,
God, you walk around every day like this," and it's like, "Well, yeah,
right? So w- you said the surgeries you have, they're only stomach augmentations and the
I did."
kidney transplant?
Yeah, stomach augmentations, bladder augmentations. ureter augmentations. Yeah, I've never really had too many other surgeries besides that. It's all been stomach related. I've had a few small bowel obstructions, and then the
How,
last one I had,
how were those? Like, how did they
those
come
were
about? How did you go through that?
the the first one that I can really remember, I think I was about 7 or 8 years old, and I was literally at school or at home one day and woke up and my stomach hurt, and 3 days later or 2 days later, I was in a hospital and I sat there for a week, get my stomach pumped out until they opened me up and reversed the knot that was in it. And then the last one that I had was, I think I was about almost 16 years old. And I was same thing, woke up one morning and literally was in so much pain that I was like screaming and went into the hospital and they were like, yeah, your bowels are all messed up. And I had a doctor that did my first kidney transplant, went in after a week of doing NG tube and no food and clear liquids and this,
What
that
would you do the NG tube and no food for again?
for small bowel obstruction.
Oh, I thought that was only 24 hours before the surgery you couldn't eat, though. Well, obviously you couldn't
Uh,
eat before that while it's
no,
obstructed, but you,
so yeah, so it's obstructed. So the bowel was actually twisted around a piece of uh, scar tissue that had fallen off one of my scars. It fell into the lower intestine, and literally the intestine wrapped around it.
oh wow, I didn't know that could happen.
Yeah, I didn't either. And the doctor after the surgery came in, he's like, "Yeah," he's like, "You'll be fine in a couple of weeks." So he's like, "Really?" He's like, "You just opened me up." He's like, "Yeah, but I didn't do anything." He's like, "I literally went in and like found this little piece of tissue. I cut it in half, and your bowels perfectly went back to normal, and you'll be fine in a couple of weeks." So every time I've had a surgery, it's been pretty lucky. The closest I've really come was the last when my kidney failed in 2017. I was at a friend's house sitting around a bonfire and literally started projectile vomiting and was like, okay, something's wrong. I'm not feeling good. And 3 hours later, I was in a ER room, and 4 hours later, I was on a ventilator and shipped from Beloit Hospital, UW Madison. And at 7 o'clock that morning, they started a central line to start dialysis.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
So,
it went from 0 to 180 in like no time, and it was. I actually saw the doctor that sent me from Beloit to Madison a couple weeks later because I went in not feeling good again, just due to starting dialysis and everything. And I saw him, and I was like, you saved my life. I was like, if you wouldn't have sent me, I probably wouldn't have made it. And he's like, oh, I knew you didn't look good, and you weren't responding anymore to anything. And he's like, you had to go. I couldn't treat you anymore.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a few close calls, but nothing. That was about the closest one I had.
Although I've never heard of a doctor saying, having humility saying they can't treat a patient. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the
I mean
first I've heard of that.
yeah. He had no problem. He was like, I know when I can draw my line, and I had to draw my line and ship you off.
Yeah, and I'm sorry because that may not have been what you wanted, but a doctor like that
Oh,
just absolutely amazing who
oh yeah,
who has humility to admit, hey, maybe there's some things I can't do or I don't
yeah,
know. I
yeah.
thought that was amazing.
Yeah,
So,
that's yeah, and I've ran into him a few times since the last transplant of dealing with aftermarket of just not feeling good and going in the ER and seeing him, and he's like, oh man, I still tell people today that this is the one patient that I'd send him away and I saved him, but I still feel bad that I tried to treat him for a while and didn't help him, and I was like, you weren't going to help me. I was like, there is no one going to help unless I got shipped out, and I was like, you did what you could.
right, right. So, backing up a little bit, at your first bowel obstruction, I think it was,
Yeah.
how did that affect you physically and emotionally with the age you were at?
I really couldn't tell you. I don't really truly remember much of it. I do remember that I was out of school for a couple of weeks for rehab and everything, and that was about really all I remember from it. Is just being little and being told you're not doing anything. You can't, really go do anything or play outside or anything because you're recovering.
Right.
But at that point,
And
I'd been so sick my whole life that it was just normal to sit on the couch for a week, a couple of weeks, and sit on the couch and do nothing.
right, right. Now, you said you were on dialysis?
Yes, I was on dialysis from June of 2017 to November of 2017. And
Oh,
it was probably one of the weirdest, worst experiences I ever experienced was because you'd feel great for a day and then you go in and then the next day you'd feel terrible. You go in and get dialysis, you'd feel terrible that afternoon, you'd be all worn out. And the next day you'd feel great and then you'd start all over again and feel terrible. And, you know,
yeah,
it just would get worse and great. And then and there's times where I'd go to the ER because I'd be like, I'm having a hard time breathing. I know I'm filling up with fluid. And they'd be like, well, you got to wait till Tuesday because that's when your next dialysis appointment is. And it's like, well, what happens if I don't, if I fill up by then?
right,
So
right.
yeah, it was one of the weirdest, worst experiences. And I did it central line. So I didn't shower for months. I had to
Yeah.
hand wash. It was and it was like the middle of summer, so had a pool in our backyard, couldn't use it. Had people over, couldn't do things. That I was like, yeah, I just can't do things.
Well, you're definitely optimistic than most prunes. Um, I love it. But continuing here, what were some of the emotions you were feeling through dialysis?
Um, Probably sadness and worrisome and like I want to say that I felt to myself that I was being lazy because I wasn't working and doing stuff that I wanted to be doing or should have been doing.
Right,
And it's hard to deal with, every day you're booking yourself full of something every day to not feel good.
right, right. So, what would you say was the hardest part of dealing with prune belly syndrome?
Uh, probably dealing with the sickness and not knowing what could happen or what might they save the next time you go in, or you know
Right.
what's the next doctor that's researching prune belly going to say, and where
Now,
what's their lines going to be later on down the road of dealing with prune belly. I That's where I am. I want to know what our future holds for us survivors with it.
exactly. And that's part of the reason I made this channel for people with young children who have prune belly or even just for older prune belly, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But if so, while yes, I'd say I did make this for awareness so doctors can do more cures and, more research and have
yeah,
a need for this. I'd say I did it mainly because it helps prune bellies not only get out their feelings and vent and get their story told a little bit, but it also encourages other prune bellies along the way.
yeah, yeah. And it's even the young parents out there. I watched my parents struggle for years of dealing with my health and ups and
Yeah,
downs. It is a struggle, but it's my parents are so happy that they have a grandchild now. You know,
right.
there's a lot you can do on your future can go a long way as long as you stay positive about it.
And I wanted to talk to you about that too, because there's a common, I don't know if I would call it a misconception, but there's a common idea out there in the medical field anyway, that prune bellies can't have their own kids.
Right. So it is pretty much, I mean, as far as every doctor has told me, yes, same here. You cannot physically have kids the natural way. I had to have a surgery that was technically like experimental. They went in and removed my testicle and actually pulled sperm out of the testicle and then froze it. And then took an egg and met the egg and the sperm and made an embryo. So I did not conceive the natural way, but there is ways that you can get your own sperm and have your own DNA
Right.
child.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I didn't either, and that's where we started 5 years ago of researching and talking to doctors, and it all started with that of I had to go meet with a urologist, and the urologist sent me to a farther in-depth urologist of urology and testicular and sexual reproductive, and they went way farther. I mean, we went through tests and tests and tests, and then we did the surgery for the sperm removal. And
What kind of tests did you have to go through?
what did all did we go through? We went through. I did two ultrasounds on the testicle. I did an ultrasound of the prostate. What did you do?
So I did all of like the IVF
Yeah, she did.
testing.
So all your regular IVF testing had to be done. I was more or less had to have just more of ultrasounds, and I had to go in and see if I had to do the sperm test where I had to ejaculate and then pee to see if there was sperm in the urine, or if it was directed into there and not coming out. So they had to do that test, and that came back that there was no sperm in the urine, and so then we had to move forward with the experimental surgery of testing to see if there was sperm even in the testicle.
And what was your mindset preparing for this experimental surgery?
Um, I was okay with it because he pretty much explained it to me. He's like, we're doing a reverse of a vasectomy. He's like, instead of going in and snipping the tube, we're going in and make sure the tube is there. He's like, yeah, it's no big difference.
All right. So, was the surgery painful afterwards?
It took me about, what was it, 2, 3 weeks to recover. And I was about 2, 3 weeks into recovery and was working outside and kind of tore the surgical spot. And so it had to take me it actually ended up being like 4 weeks of recovery because it had to take a little longer to heal. But it, as, of the experiences I've talked to people, it's about as painful as a vasectomy. And I was like, okay. And they're like, so you're going to hurt for a few days. And I was tender and sore down there for a few days. And I walked around a little weird for a couple of weeks. But other than that, you're just uncomfortable for a couple of days. And then, it's pretty much, you're just, d- you know, after about a week, it's fine.
Why did it take you longer to heal?
When I tore the surgical spot on my nutsack, working outside at my house. And when I went in to like check and see how badly I tore it, it was actually healing the wrong way. So I didn't even tear it; it was healing the wrong way than it was supposed to. So it took longer to heal, and that was the only difference. And he's like, it was. He's like, it has nothing to do with you. He's like, just sometimes they heal the wrong way.
But they didn't have to go in back in and fix
No,
anything.
no, didn't have to go back in and fix it. Just checked it all, and they were like, yeah, it's just healing the wrong way.
Interesting. So, what are some of the struggles? What are some of the medical struggles you have today?
Medical struggles I have today is I have a bad back, like really bad. I have a hard time walking most days and dealing with doing a lot of things. I'm very flat-footed, so walking long distances does start to hurt my feet. Um, I dealing with chronic illness. I am tired all the time. I am worn out. I don't know if anyone else is out there. That was that's actually coming to some of the questions and comments I wanted to find out from you was what people are saying of, are they tired all the time? Are they worn out in their 30s? Like I talk to people and buddies of mine who are in their 30s and they don't seem to be as tired as I am. Is there people out there that are as tired as I am and worn out and come home from a 8-hour day and are exhausted and feel like they worked 30? Um, the other thing I deal with a lot is the sickness of having a weakened immune system from the kidney transplants. If I get the flu, it's not a flu of I had the flu for 2, 3 days. I had the flu for 2 to 3 weeks. And that really struggles when you have a job of calling and telling your boss, hey, I'm still sick. I'm sorry you can't rely on me this week.
Right. And it
So
could also, so what were some of the struggles you had starting your business?
um I wouldn't say I had too many struggles because at the time I was doing pretty healthy when I started my business. My biggest struggle would probably be just finding the um, energy to keep up with the work that comes in. I find myself behind with the work a lot, and it's because I work a full-time job and I'm exhausted afterwards, so I can't come home and work on this and do what I'd really like to do right now, full time.
Okay. So, have you ever had a feeding tube?
No, I have not.
No, you've never had
Actually,
any.
that I may be wrong there. I may have had one when I was very little, but I have never had one that I remember.
Okay.
I think I had one when I was really little, but I can't remember for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, if parents are watching this, there's someone pregnant with a prune belly, right? Let's forget parents for a second and just say the one pregnant with the prune belly, those parents trying to make the decision. What advice would you give them?
It, life is always best. It's better to have life than and lost it than to not have life at all.
Yep, that's definitely where I stand.
Yeah. I feel I mean, I do see the struggle. I mean, I see that there's people out there that are way worse off than me and you with Prune Valley that are, can't talk, can't walk, can't function completely. But
Right,
they're alive and they're happy and they're healthy. They're healthy enough to be with people. And that's better than nothing at all.
right. So, if you were doing an interview with an OBGYN, right, and you were talking to them about prune belly syndrome, and when you ask them, well, what do you normally say about prune belly syndrome? And they say, well, they normally don't make it, so our recommendation is just to abort. What would you do to try and kind of change their mind on that recommendation?
Um, that's a good question. That's kind of hard too. Um, I just say, well, look at all the ones that survive. Look at all the ones that are out there that are happy and healthy and functioning. And it's again, it's better to have life and loss than not have life at all. And I do
Right,
get it. That baby might be born and last 12 hours and that's it, but it was loved in that 12 hours.
exactly, exactly. And I think even if it's born and dies, I think using children and babies and stuff like that is how God does show his love as well. He can
Yeah,
help show his love through them.
yeah. And the big thing is it's a doctor getting 12 more hours if that's what it is. It's 12 more hours to look at another prune belly patient to see what is happening and why is it happening.
Right. So for the prune belly parents who are on the other side of this, who already had the baby and are maybe having some struggles raising him, what advice would you give to them?
It's I can give you this is it's a struggle your whole life, but God doesn't give you anything that you can't handle. One and two, wait to see what that baby's going to do in its life. Wait to see what's going to happen when it's 10 years old, when it's 15, when it starts driving, when it gets to go out for its first time and have a drink with you or whatever,
Right.
21, you know.
Yeah, that's
I just celebrated a 30th birthday. Never thought I was going to do that.
it's just
Yeah.
funny because my brother got a little bit jealous of my dad because my older brother kind of looks up to me a little bit with everything I've been through, and he's told me this. So for my 21st, he wanted to be the one to take me to the bar and get me my first drink. Well, something happened with work with him to where he couldn't do it. So I'd say, oh, we'll just hit it next weekend, and next weekend just never came.
Hey,
Still to this day.
these are fucking true. Yeah.
I'm still probably saying next weekend, but who knows?
Yeah. Right.
But
Um, yeah, that's what I mean. There's so many obstacles in life and stuff that you're gonna have a struggle with any baby out there. And yeah, you're gonna struggle a lot more with a baby with prune belly but you're gonna have more, the little, the little things in life, the little happiness moments are a lot bigger happiness moments when it happens.
Right, right. So for a prune belly patient who is depressed or doesn't see a way out of this or doesn't see how they could keep going on or something like that, what advice would you give to them?
One, don't give up. Two, there's a lot of us out here. Reach out. We are all out here to talk to each other. And three, it's, you're gonna have bad days, you're gonna have really bad times, but there's gonna be better times.
Yep,
There, you know, you're gonna struggle. It's part of life. But
right. I I gotta tell you, I've been through quite a bit. There's a surgery I had when I was 16 years old. I wasn't against the surgery. I want to point that out there for anybody. I'm not against the surgery. I was against the doctor doing the surgery because the doctor who's taken care of me my entire life kind of left the hospital. This new one stepped in. I personally thought he was kind of rude and arrogant. So I've been begging my mom and dad, look, I'll do the surgery. I'll do the surgery, just not with this doctor.
exactly.
And ignored me,
Yeah.
went south. But to get
Yeah.
back to your point on the good point, had that not happened, I probably wouldn't have ever seen Prune Belly as a rare condition, honestly. I probably would have only seen it as no big deal. The fact that
Right.
I went through that motivated me into finding the network and motivated me into starting this channel to raise awareness. So
Yeah.
I guess you gotta remember that God can take something bad and make it into something good.
Right. Right. And
Right.
I've even talked with starting a YouTube channel of just running my day-to-day life of having a life with Prune Belly to show people like, yeah, you're out there and you're going to struggle, but there's, you can live a night life like everyone else. And you know what? Everyone else, their struggles a lot too.
Yep. Yeah, I don't care who you are, everyone goes through struggles.
Right.
And the ones who don't are probably lying about their struggles.
Yeah, completely.
But uh I'm trying to think. Is there anything else interesting with your story?
Um, I mean, I guess not really. Just, I'd like to say if anyone wants to reach out, I'm on Facebook. Private message me,
Right.
anything, any questions. I'm willing to answer. My wife would probably definitely be willing to do an interview with you too.
Oh, I would
And
love that.
yeah, and I've already told people if you have any questions about the IVF stuff, message me on Facebook. We'll get you info or doctors' names that we've talked to. I mean, I am in the Midwest, so that may help too, that I do have a network of doctors in the Midwest of UW-Madison to start you somewhere to get you some kind of an answer.
Right.
So, and to
Next.
any parents or survivors out there, any questions, message me, anything.
Right. Now, you mentioned God earlier in this interview, and are you a Christian?
Lutheran, raised Lutheran, but yeah, I believe in God, and we go to a non-denominational church now.
Now, ha how have you, how has your religion affected your, um, how has your condition affected your faith and vice versa? Or your out, you kind of what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I guess I'd say a little closer to God, a little more believable in God that again, was told I wasn't going to make it through the night. And here I am at 31. So there's got to be some reason out there to it.
Right.
And the fact that I've come close to having major problems in life and still kind of always kind of made it through and been okay. So I will say, I won't say, I'm 100% like, oh my God, I'm going to push you to Jesus and God. No, but I do believe in God, and there is things that it's like, yeah, there's got to be a reason. There's that I'm still
Right.
going.
Right. Right. So did your faith help you get through some of the hard times?
Uh, I wouldn't say through it, but it was there and knew someone
Or
was out there. Yeah.
or even vice versa? Has any of your hard times made you question your faith?
Yes, I've had times where I'm like, there is no way someone would put me through this to deal with this for this long.
Yeah, a loving God.
Yeah, that would put you through pain and misery and suffering for months or years or what I mean,
Right,
I at one point I messed up my back so bad that I didn't walk for a year without painkillers. I literally was eating painkillers all day to walk and met my wife
right,
and she got me introduced to a doctor who actually fixed my back for the most part, except for what Prune Belly is doing to it. You know, it,
yeah.
it and so there's times out there where I was like, yeah, there's no way someone would actually be doing this to me. And it's like, no, there's got to be something. There's got to be a reason for this.
Right. So
So, question: do you struggle with energy and motivation to keep moving forward and keep going? And
I think everybody struggles with that from time to time. So I say, yeah,
right,
there are times I definitely struggle with that.
yeah. Do you see it more with you as do you feel like you're out and about with your friends and you're like, oh my God, they're all still going and I'm like ready for bed and tired and done and worn out. Okay.
Yeah. It's funny now that I'm thinking about it, because for my second transplant, I was supposed to get my second transplant in October of 2012,
Okay.
and I had a slight cough the day we were supposed to do it. My mom was already put under. They didn't take the kidney, they didn't cut her yet, but she was put under. So they had to take her out from being put under and said, "Oh, we're canceling the surgery. Your son has a cough." So it turns out it was post-transplant lymphoma.
Oh my
And
goodness.
not I know, not only was it post-transplant lymphoma, the guy in my church who had been praying for me to get the kidney ended up getting a kidney the day I was supposed to get it.
Oh wow.
So at that point,
So
I was like, wait a second, there is something totally wrong here.
yeah. Wow.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
and
I
I'm not
just yeah.
and I'm not saying I'm unhappy he got it. I'm happy he got it. He's a good friend of
Yeah.
mine.
Oh
But
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just a why me type situation.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. 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 And it's like, you get it seems like, it's like you'll get sick right before you're going to do something. It's like, I know I wouldn't have gotten sick if I had an immune system. Like, is this you playing with me a little bit? Like, oh yeah, you're
Right,
gonna go to you're not. Sorry.
right.
But
Yeah.
other than that, you just again, it's the way you've looked at it's the way I've looked at it in the whole of life. I'm up every morning. I keep moving forward, and it's positive. Yeah, I have angry days. I have crappy days like everyone else, and my wife will tell you the same thing. Yes, I blow gaskets. I have bad days like everyone else. I have days where I'm sick. I don't move. I'm tired. I don't get out of bed. And then there's weeks where I'm great, and I go weeks and months of feeling great, and then it'll hit me, and I'll be done down for a week. And that's my biggest struggle in life is not knowing when you're going to get sick and how long for. And I think everyone
Right.
truly in life struggles with that, but people like us, especially with medical conditions, struggle way more with you have no idea what's going to be around the corner with your own body.
Exactly. Now, do you have any siblings?
I have one sister.
All right. What's your relationship with her, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, we're very close. Uh, brother, sisters, growing, fought and everything growing up,
Yeah.
but she did give me a kidney, and we're very close and talk about once a week. And she lives down in Charleston, South Carolina, um, and she is a museum head, head of like their historical department for all of Charleston.
Right. That's
So
interesting.
yeah, yeah, we are very, very big history buffs in our family too. So
Yeah, I was originally going to college for history and eventually ended up switching it to biblical studies.
oh, okay,
So, so. Um, I think we're coming down to the end pretty close here. Is unless there's a lot more to your story you haven't said.
Not, not really.
No,
I'm
sorry,
sure.
I'm
I'm sure
trying.
my something's going to watch this and comment and be like, "Oh my God, there's so much more to his story that he didn't say." But it. I don't
Right,
know. I
right,
don't really see it as like major thing. It's just I just it's major little things that happen, and you just keep moving forward, and you just got to stay happy and positive, or else
right,
you're going to be depressed your whole life about having a medical condition that's rare.
right.
It's terrible. It's a horrible thing to say that we have a rare condition that 1 in 40,000, if that now, are born with. And my wife actually asked me the other day, we were talking about it. She's like, "Well, how many survivors are there?" The only number I can find out there of living survivors is that there are about 1,500 living survivors under the age of 18. That's it. They have no other record of anything because they just don't know. I don't know what it is, but they literally just that's it. That's all you can find. You Google it, research it. I don't know if it's maybe on our on the Prune Belly website, but all it says in Google is there is about 1,500 people in America or the world with Prune Belly syndrome under the age of 18. That's it. And it's like, well, yeah, but what about all the ones that are over 18?
Exactly.
The Frank Walkers and everything that are out there that are still going and
Yeah,
still happy and positive.
you figure if they're keeping track of how many prune bellies there are, they should be keeping track of how many prune bellies there are.
Right. Where are all the rest of the survivors?
But unfortunately, and I don't want to say unfortunately because it's not unfortunate, but it seems like they're trying to focus on curing it before it happens
Yeah,
than focusing on how to fix it after it happens.
right.
Like for
And I,
example, I had a doctor on my show probably about a year ago, and he said with all the medical advancements that are coming up, he believes within the next 20 years he'll he'll be able to cure prune belly in the womb.
yeah, and prevent it from happening. I know I had a cousin about 10 years ago, got pregnant and was having a baby, and they called her. She went in for an ultrasound, and the doctor called her that afternoon and was like, "You need to come back in." And she's like, "Why?" And they're like, "We're going to do another ultrasound. There is we think you have one less blood vessel or artery in your umbilical cord going to the baby." And he's like, "This could lead to prune belly syndrome." And she's like, "You're kidding me, right?" And he's like, "Why? Have you heard of that?" And she's like, "Yes, I have a cousin with it." And he's like, "Now I can't tell you this, and I can't." He's like, "But we have seen in the past that this may lead to that." And I never followed. I never heard anything more if they really figured that out. If they came down to if that's actually what causes it, if
Right.
it's not. So I am. That's actually. I'm glad you said to you. So I'm going to go back and look at your videos now and watch the interview because I haven't really kept up with what's going on of what their research is and what they found. When we've actually
Neither
we're
have I.
talking.
This is 2 years ago. That was
Yeah. Right. So we're actually talking that we might do the convention this year. And I just want to go because I want to find out what's going on, what these doctors are saying, and
right.
how far have we come? What have we figured out in the last, I don't think I've been to one in 10, maybe 15 years now. So what's going on? What have we found out in 10 to 15 years? Is there more prevention to it? Is there things we're finding out now or
Well, there's something I do want to say about the convention, and hopefully the prune belt, someone on the board or who does the organizing is watching this. The convention is good not only because the prune bellies learn more about prune belly, obviously from the doctors, but it's important because you're seeing you're not alone anymore. Because
right,
I don't know about you, but for me, growing up, I was always told I'd never see another prune belly again because of how rare it was.
right. I
So
I was told that for a long time until I met Daniel Walker. And when I met
mine,
him,
my
when
first
I
one
met
I think was Sean Mulligan.
Okay. Yep. I met Daniel Walker or yeah, Daniel Walker, and then I met um Frank and oh my God, I'm drawing a total blank. Kurt.
Yeah,
I met Frank and Kurt, and that's when it kind of started
right.
learning. about it, and websites started coming up. And one of the conventions was in Chicago about, oh God, I can't remember. I was young. I was maybe 12 years old. But my mom threw one of the conventions in Chicago a long time ago and stuff. And we went to the New York one, and I just haven't been in a long time. And I
Right.
want to go again because I do want to catch up with everyone. I want to see what everyone's doing now, and where we're at with doctors, and what are doctors saying? Do doctors need us to come in more and volunteer more to get another test or get something done, or have them look at, do they need more ultrasounds or whatever? Do they need records and stuff? Because go ahead, take it. If you can figure out how to fix all this, and I hate to say prevent it,
Right.
but prevent, let's figure out what's going on. I don't want to I don't want to see a kid out there run around like me and struggle and have a life like this, because it's not the greatest life
Right.
because you struggle. But again, I'm positive towards it, and
Yeah.
Michael
It is
is alive.
in terms of the positive, it is a life or a condition that builds your character and gives you
Yeah,
perseverance.
yeah. It is one thing, that is one of the things to upcoming parents is, if they if you have a surviving baby, that will be the strongest, happiest baby you will probably ever meet in your life, because that child will be through so much that the little itty bitty things in life will be happy moments, positive thoughts. You know,
Right.
it's going to be life a lot better, a lot happier, because it's been through so much. And that, I can contest that. I was a kid who spent half his life in a hospital till the age of 10, and everyone was always like, "Why are you so happy?" Well, I'm happy. Why wouldn't I be? I'm here. I'm not in the hospital. I'm not.
And was that all due to the dialysis?
No, I didn't have dialysis till I was about what was, like 23. Yeah, I was
Oh.
23 when I had dialysis.
So
I
wait,
I did,
why were you in the hospital half your
I
like
just being sick, and
you mean like
yeah,
the flu and stuff like that were they okay.
just growing up being, having
Because I was about to say, is
having
there something we're missing here?
no, just being in and out of hospitals and being sick, and
Right,
surgeries, and
right, right.
from 0 to 10 years old, you spend a lot of time in the hospital, and it's like, yeah, well, actually, there's a story of an uncle literally called me one time. I was in a hospital, and he's like, "Are your parents there?" I was like, "No." And I was a little kid. I answered the phone. I was like, "No, just me and the nurses. Like, I don't know what you're expecting there to be." And he's like, "Well, you
Right.
answered the phone." He's like, "I figured your mom was there or something." I was like, "No, it's just me in the hospital with the nurses." So it was a big joke. He's like, "Yep, called Dad, and he was in the hospital with all the nurses." So,
Right.
but yeah,
So,
it's yeah, you're gonna struggle, but there's so many little steps and little positive moments, and that child is going to go through a lot and a lot of struggle, but they're going to be happy. They're going to be such a, I've been told I walk into a room and light it up, because I'm just a big personality, a happy person, and want to talk to people and want to be around, because you never know
right,
when tomorrow they're going to come with us.
right.
So,
So, is there anything else you'd like to add?
not really. Just like I said, if anyone has any questions, please reach out on Facebook. Oh, Dan Mason, I'm right on there. Yeah, go ahead and
And if people had questions, right?
yeah,
Because obviously I want them coming back to this channel if they do,
yeah.
but if they had questions, would you be willing to come back on and do another video?
Oh yeah, of course.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Uh,
you.
everyone, this was Dan Mason. Amazing story. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you next week. Don't forget to share the video, and let's together all hashtag spread prune belly awareness.